Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Case IH. Solutions for every challenge. Equipment for every farm. Case IH, built by farmers.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson. Now you might notice the studio this week looks a little different. We're in Monterey, California for the Organic Growers Summit. Farmers from around the country have come together to talk about what's ahead for the organic industry, and there is a lot to learn this week.
Thank you and welcome to what is not only going to be an incredible summit and conference.
Sylvia, you were the keynote to kick off this year's Organic Grower Summit in Monterey, and when you stand and look at the organic industry nationwide, how are we sitting?
We're sitting pretty sassy.
Okay.
We're growing at twice the speed of conventional food as of 24 over 23 stats. We're one of the most trusted food labels. Most surveys put us at the top as the most trusted food label. When you have more than 550 pages of regulations to define what you can do and can't do. But I think organic is in a time of thriving.
It's time of thriving, but I also hear some uncertainty from the audience here. What's the competitor? What's coming for organics?
So we're at an inflection point that really could be, rather than two pathways, one bigger, more functional highway. And is it going to be regenerative and organic are going to live together well, or are they going to be separate, or are they going to get married and be one? So that is on debate right here at the Organic Growers Summit.
What would we like to see happen? What's the ideal?
The ideal, I think, if we want to keep getting organic accessible to more shoppers at all levels of socioeconomic capability, the ideal is that we learn to get along and that regenerative and organic can both be seen as a positive. We just need to learn how to play well together.
Is that a function of getting growers to react together, or is it reaching a new audience who understands both?
It's both. It's both. Right now, all surveys show that farmers are pretty confused by what regenerative means, or is regenerative the place to start, or is organic? So that means as we start to have brands go on shelf in grocery stores, liquor stores, right? If it might say certified regenerative, and it might also have a USDA seal, and then it might have non-GMOs. So it serves to put consumers into vertigo rather than into clarity and trust.
So hopefully over the coming year, we can get some more clarity, help these different groups find a path forward. Sylvia, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us on this rapidly growing but also rapidly changing industry.
Yep, thank you. It's never boring.
Our market update is brought to you by Farm Futures. Keep up with these volatile commodity markets at farmfutures.com. This week's a little different. Out here in California, we're talking with Matt Wolf. He is the specialty crops analyst with Terrain. And Matt, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now here in California, costs are a little different than they are in other places around the country. Can you give us some idea of some of the cost pressures California farmers are under? Absolutely.
So certainly California is a lot more costly to grow pretty much anything. To put that in perspective a little bit, it takes about $40,000 an acre to grow strawberries. It takes somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 an acre to grow tree nuts, which are a big deal in the state. And so our costs tend to be much, much higher than the rest of the farm economy.
A lot of those have been increasing quickly.
Yes, that's been a big part of what we've seen in the last few years. It used to take roughly 4 years to get to profitability. When you put in an acre of almonds, that is much more extended now, somewhere between 8 to 10.
Okay, so these low margin environments are hitting nearly everybody in agriculture, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
California also faces a different regulatory overlook than most other folks in agriculture. What are some of the big items from a regulatory perspective on your radar for 2026?
Yeah, I would say it revolves around a few different things. I mean, number one is labor. Labor is a big regulatory component. Number two, food safety for certain items tends to be really important. And then number three is water. Water is incredibly important as far as regulations go, particularly the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which is going to regulate how much we can pump out of the ground, and that's going to have a really big impact in water-stressed areas like the Central Valley.
Well, let's talk about what that will mean on the ground. If this comes to pass, if this rule gets changed for a grower in the Central Valley, what could be an impact?
So this rule is actually already in effect, and we're trying to get to sustainability in a lot of these regions. But to put it in perspective, by 2030, there are some areas that will only be allowed to pump about 0.6 acre-feet per acre out of the ground, and to put that in even more perspective, almonds take about 4 acre-feet of water a year to produce. So it's going to be a lot of stress on a lot of different regions.
And I imagine some crops will come out of production as this ground rule restriction comes in. What are those growers likely to transition to? Are there good dryland opportunities?
It's a really challenging question, and particularly when land values are elevated like they are in California, it's hard to make that make sense often. The Public Policy Institute of California puts the total acres that will be fallowed or repurposed somewhere between 500,000 acres to 1 million acres, so it'll have a really big impact. But growers have always adapted, and so we are seeing growers doing a whole range of things, whether it's experimenting with entirely new crops or figuring out ways to become even more efficient with the crops that they're currently in production with.
The challenges for agriculture might look different in our different regions, but they always come back to Mother Nature working against us or costs
Absolutely.
coming against us. Now, of course, in addition to being a massive agricultural powerhouse, California is also a massive consumer of agricultural products, and recently was approved to sell E15 year-round. Is this something that's going to take off in the Golden State?
I would assume it takes off in the Golden State. Californians, we pay about $1.50 more per gallon compared to the rest of the state or the rest of the country on average. So ultimately, hopefully it brings down that price. In addition, hopefully that it makes the environment cleaner as well, because E15 in theory should do that. In addition to E15, we have other changes with refinery closures and changes to LCFS. So those are going to have impacts as well. And it's very difficult to understand the aggregate impact of all these changes when we think about price at the pump.
The LCFS, Low Carbon Fuel Standard, of course, California, one of the first states to put one into being. Do you see those changes coming through next year?
Well, what we're seeing is they're making it much stricter as we go from today all the way to 2045. And so what they've done is they've lowered those carbon intensity targets as we go out into the future. And so the main reason they did that was because we had an excess of credits, and the state is constantly having this tension between the use of biofuels to reduce carbon intensity and the push towards electrification. And so I think we're starting to see that tension a little bit more play out in the state. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward, particularly for Midwest crops, and then ultimately how that affects price at the pump for California producers.
We are all connected.
Yes.
Matt Wolf, Specialty Crops Analyst with Terrain, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks so much.
Recently in Kansas City for the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Annual Convention, I had the chance to catch up with Greg Anderson. He's a farmer in northeast Nebraska and also serves on the board of the Clean Fuels Alliance America. I asked him if that expanded soy crush in his state has made a difference on his farm.
Well, the expanded crush in Nebraska is just phenomenal. We have added 2 new crushing plants just within the last year. One in Norfolk that crushes about 135,000 bushels per day. One in David City with 150,000 bushels per day. Just those 2 plants alone will take 1/4 of Nebraska's soybeans. Just think about that, the volume that rolls through those plants. And so it's drawing in beans from all sectors around those communities, and really helping our basis, helping create demand. With 5 crushing plants total in the state, we can almost process about 85% of our state's beans right in state. I think that's a good move, especially in these days with uncertainties in trade barriers and things that happen like that. But it also is really foundational, because those were built for biofuels. All the oil coming off those plants are going to biodiesel or renewable diesel, and a lot of that's going to California, our biggest customer.
Now, Greg, that is a great setup. Because this is having such a big impact on your bottom line, you serve on the governing board for Clean Fuels Alliance America. You touched on the demand out there. This demand for biofuels, does Clean Fuels Alliance anticipate this continuing and growing as we look out over the next few years?
We certainly do. Back in 2020, we set a long-range strategic plan of 6 billion gallons of domestic fuel being produced and used by the year 2030. We're almost there now. And to see that grow and to see the RFS volumes earlier this summer be very friendly and very robust sends a good signal. We hope those volumes are confirmed and finalized very, very soon. That's important. And we're seeing now that biodiesel and renewable diesel comprise about 10% of our nation's distillate pool. So we're not a niche player anymore, we're mainstream.
Where do you see the next few years for the industry going? What would you like to see as a member of the board and a farmer?
I like to see 10 billion gallons by 2035. I think that's not only feasible but reasonable. We see growing appetites for biodiesel and these fuels to decarbonize. It's the cheapest option to do that. Railroads are giving us a hard look, very firm look. Marine applications. We can't forget about our friends in the northeastern part of the United States, bioheat. Heating oil blended with biodiesel to clean up the air and be sustainable. Bioheat is going to heat 500,000 homes this winter. And it's all soybean oil, much of it coming from the Midwest, processed and used out there.
Wow. So this growth is happening from a policy perspective. What would you like to see as 2026 comes into focus? What would help the clean fuels industry get a bigger win?
Not only the RFS rules being finalized and put in place, but the small refinery exemptions really need to be taken a look at. EPA must come through and reallocate all these gallons that they've granted to the SREs. If they don't, it will cause very grave concern on not only the gallons that we produce. It could happen from 500 million to 1 billion gallons less usage and production, and that will trickle down to the American soybean farmer who provides feedstock for these fuels. It could affect us negatively for 40 cents a bushel. We just can't take that hit. So every gallon that has been doled out for SREs, small refinery exemptions, must be reallocated, and then we can take care of that problem.
Is there a way that those of us in the public can help encourage the EPA to fully reallocate those bushels?
I think they just need to hear from, let's ask Congress to put some pressure on them. EPA has fine people at work, career people who are wanting to do the right thing, but yet they need to be guided. And just call your congressman, senator. Let's get the action done, showing how important this is for rural America.
And if we've got audience members who want to learn more about the importance of biofuel, renewable diesel, where would you send them for information?
Very easy. Just go to cleanfuels.org and we'll find a plethora of information on not only biodiesel, renewable diesel, SAF, which is the aviation fuel that's on the horizon as well.
That was Greg Anderson on the board of Clean Fuels Alliance America. And if you'd like more details, learn more on their website, cleanfuels.org.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead.
Well, weather is certainly a hot topic no matter where you gather together with a group of farmers, and that's certainly the case here in Monterey for the Organic Grower Summit. Greg Solier back in the studio, keeping an eye on what's to come from the sky this next week. And Greg, how are we looking?
Well, Mike, hopefully you're enjoying weather out there across Monterey and vicinity with a far better setup there than really anywhere else to the north and over the remainder of the country. It's been winter early and often already, as expected across some of these upper Midwestern and northern Plain States areas. No shortage of weather systems. That is a strengthening and settling southward jet stream pattern, tapping into the southern periphery of some of this Arctic air that set readings down to below zero stature, and more snow in the forecast, by the way. Livestock operations, we're going to continue to improve drought-related issues, but in more or less a winter sense here. Two more weather systems stacked up across the western reaches of the country. They extend as far south with time as Monterey and points on northward with some organized rainfall there. Nice to see some significant drought improvement across that particular part of the country as well over the past couple of weeks. Little change expected, no shortage of moisture. Arctic air entrenched here. The jet stream pattern strong west-northwest to east-southeast. One weather system, more organized snows for parts of the Dakotas, High Plains areas, more mountain snow across the northern Rockies, more rain across coastal sections, mid to late portions of the week as well. Meanwhile, mild, dry environments across those same central valleys on southward, still cool and crisp across the desert southwest relative to even early December, and some moisture, but this is High Plains moisture with a northeast wind flow expected to generate some additional snow showers and flurries, and it's just cold, by the way. A pretty quiet weather pattern expected onto the southern plains. Matter of fact, just very little movement on some of the showers of snow and rain, higher peaks of New Mexico, snow showers and flurries along the divide, cold, dry air across much of Kansas and Oklahoma, sunshine and warmth continuing on, or at least back into play across the central and southern valleys of California, maybe even a subtle Santa Ana shaping up later on into the week. A winter-like weather pattern, period. Already a bunch of snow on the ground, 6+ inches over a wide area from parts of the Dakotas, upper Midwest, down across the eastern Corn Belt. No shortage of at least weak weather systems on the move for this week. Another quick dash of snow shower and flurry activity here. Again, we're kind of moving these systems along the periphery of this Arctic air mass. It's going to come southward with time, but in the meantime, one weather system moving on by here, another one upstream with another round of light snow, but no improvement on temperatures, no thaw expected whatsoever, and lots of insulation out there in those cornfields and winter wheat fields because of the snowpack and cover. Maybe a few sprinkles of snow and rain as far south as the parts of, the Ozarks. We had that last week, and again early on this week here, there's a noticeable chilly rain early in the week winding out of the central Gulf Coast areas back into sunshine and probably frost and freezes all the way down to the Rio Grande. Little change. This weather system stays stalled across the Rio Grande. A couple of showers here. Temperatures begin to modify and moderate some across the desert southwest, even a snowflake into the High Plains areas. Otherwise, pretty quiet weather picture with another little clipper system up north towards the Ohio. A few sprinkles of rain, flakes of snow there. They've seen significant drought improvement because of rain and snow in those southern Corn Belt areas of late. Cold and at times snowy. That's just really the trademark going on this week. No major systems, but just a plethora of weather systems on the move. One moves on through for the early portion of the week into the northeast of New England. On its heels, another clipper system. No modification of that snowpack or snow cover whatsoever. Will add to it incrementally so, but again, no major systems for now. That may be changing as we head through the mid to late stretch of the month of December. And the cold is prevalent with some snow in the Georgia mountains across the areas of the southern Appalachian Trail. A couple of snowflakes into the southern plains and a chilly rain across the Gulf Coast area, except for some frost and freeze. A pretty quiet weather picture with sunshine over the mid-Atlantic region. Nice to get some significant rain there of late with dryness improvement on the books. And a couple of systems here that will generate maybe a few sprinkles and snowflakes into the High Plains areas west of the Panhandle. Cool, dry weather expected to continue on across a good part of central and southern Florida. We'll have that 4-week forecast coming up later on in the broadcast.
Closed captioning this week is brought to you by Farm Progress. Their team of experts reports on innovative solutions and essential information for your farm business. Visit farmprogress.com to stay updated. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here at the Organic Growers Summit in Monterey, California. Joining me now is Walt Duflock. And Walt, you've been involved with this event for a number of years. Is that right?
I have. Year 6.
Why do you like to be involved with it?
I like it because it's a great end of the year time to check in with all the organic growers who grow conventionally as well, and check with all the ag tech guys, see what's going on with them on the robot land, see what's going on the labor front, which is my big issue for Western growers, and just a one end of the year pre-holiday check-in with everybody before we all go our separate ways and separate the holidays.
Now, you mentioned labor. That's your focus there with Western growers. You led a panel today on the intersection of labor and automation. What are the labor challenges you're hearing from your growers out west?
It's the same ones we keep hearing for years now. It's the availability of domestic labor continues to decrease because of fertility challenges nationwide, globally, if you will. And then it's the cost of it. So as the minimum wage of ag labor goes up, the rate for international labor goes up with it. So we have an H-2A program where we can ask for international field workers, international farm workers to come in. That program has grown very quickly the last 20 years. Nationwide, it's gone from 48,000 back in 2005 to 378,000 in 2024. California is leading the pack in some ways in growth because we've gone up by 3 times the last 5 years. So we're 44,000 international farm workers, which means we are paying them a higher minimum wage, an AWAR, an adverse effect wage rate, $19.97 at last check in California. Then we're paying for housing, we're paying for transportation, we're paying for food. When we bring them in, we're responsible for all that. So that will take labor costs in California for many of these farm worker hours up to $28 to $30 an hour. And it's hard to stay competitive in that market.
How are growers adapting to $30 an hour labor? What are they finding as potential solutions?
So there's really three main solutions, and we heard about this on the panel today. David Scaroni mentioned that you can get more productive, so your workers can deliver more boxes of output per hour by just training and focusing on efficiency. You can use automation and robots, things like laser weeding and mechanical weeding to do the work of weeding crews, and you can relocate the acreage, which we think is absolutely happening outside of California to other states and other countries.
When you think of other countries, what are places that these growers are going?
So in the 90s, when we passed the North American Free Trade Agreement, it started to go to Mexico. And since then, it's gone further and further south. So now South America's got a lot of specialty crop acreage that would have previously been grown in the States and in California. And over the last 20 years, if you will, Peru is the one example I always use because it's the one I got to visit firsthand last year and see it. These are commercial scale operations with commercial scale pack houses behind them because in some cases they're grown by the same people, our members, that are growing it here and growing it there. So over the years they've figured out that if labor is going to go to where it is now, 28 to 30, some of them saw around the corner, they said, I might as well look at Mexico back in the 90s and 2000s, I might as well look at Peru and other places, and they've adopted and they've done quite well. So you definitely see some movement both east and south outside of California in varying degrees at varying times, mix of crops as well.
Taking that acreage to where the labor is.
That's exactly right.
Now, for those that are here, the domestic growers leaning on robotics, are there any exciting developments in the world of automation and robotics that are really helping reduce some of these costs?
There definitely are, and all the excitement at this point, well, not fair to say to the harvest guys, but all the excitement that we see in the marketplace and the traction part of the business is in non-harvest activities. So things like weeding and thinning and planting and spraying that you can do that just require you to destroy some part of a plant or a crop, those are easier to do than the harvest. And just to give you some numbers, so California ag is about a $62 billion business in GDP terms. 16.3 of it is for labor, and that buys 850 million hours of labor last year, right? So just wrap your arms around that for a minute. It means two things. It means it's our biggest input, and it means it's the most important input cost to manage. And the only way to manage it, other than the efficiency David mentioned, is to automate it. And so where the automation success is happening, Carbon Robotics does a good laser weeder for $1.4 million. Stout Industrial's got a nice mechanical weeder for about $400,000. There's spray units out there like Gus, Eco Robotics, Nico Robotics in the $250,000 to $500,000 range. There's Burrow, which does Harvest Assist, which helps move the product back to the truck from the crew, 30% efficiency gains in that. So that's where we see the action. And in all those cases, when you put them all together, we think that of that 850 million hours, 1/3 of it's for non-harvest, so 280 million. 2/3 of it's for harvest, 560 million. Now, if we come back to the non-harvest part, we're 2 to 3% automated right now, on our way to 15 to 20 in the next 5 years.
On that 1/3.
On that 1/3, right? So that's 50 million hours plus of automation. That's a great start. Unfortunately, on harvest, it turns out the hardest thing in agriculture to replicate with a robot is the ability to see, identify the correct ones, and physically pick the vegetables and fruits off the plant and put it into a container. That process is proving very hard. We are at roughly 0% of fresh harvest process automation. Where we've had success is in the process places like bag salads and wine, when we can put it in a bag or a freezer container or a bottle of wine. We can be a little less gentle to it, but when you're presenting that whole food to the customer, it's got to be treated like, just a baby's bottom. I mean, it's got to be so careful all the way through. That's the last mile for us to automate, and it's proving really hard.
All right, but it sounds like there are technologists on here at the event on hand looking to solve that challenge. Hopefully, we can make some progress in the coming years. Well, if we've got folks who have never been to an OGS, would you encourage them to come?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, first week in December. Monterey's not a bad place to be. You can see the weather today, and it's a great 2 days to see friends, catch up on great content, get a last year check-in before we all wrap for the holidays. OGS is a great place to come.
Fantastic. Walt Duflock with Western Growers, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you.
And folks, we'll have more coming up after this.
Farm Progress Broadcast presents This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. Brought to you by Pioneer. Plant with confidence. Plant the #1 corn and soybean seed of the U.S. Pioneer.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we came out to Monterey for the Organic Grower Summit, I had the chance to talk with Dr. Steve Lerner. Dr. Lerner works with Novonesis, and I asked him about that company's history, since it's a name maybe not all of us are familiar with.
Novonesis is the merger of two relatively old organizations. Novozymes, 100 years in business, came together with Christian Hansen, about 150 years of business. Their sole focus is bettering the world with biology. Everything we do uses microorganisms. We use those tiny but mighty organisms to produce enzymes, to produce coagulants to turn milk into curds and whey, to convert corn into bioethanol, to provide probiotics to people and all the animals in our care.
Well, let's dive into that. How does Novonesis take a look at animal health, and how do these tools fit into it?
When you think about effective probiotics, the definition given to us by the World Health Organization is living organisms that, when provided in an adequate quantity, confer a health benefit to the host. We take that definition and kind of think about it slightly differently. We think of probiotics, effective probiotics, as tools that give producers of our meat, milk, and eggs the opportunity to keep every animal in their care simply healthy and normal. We believe that when you provide effective probiotics, effective enzymes into the diet of these animals, you improve their capacity to digest nutrients out of feed, to absorb those nutrients. That means feed efficiency. You also give them the capacity to maintain a healthy gut lining, preventing leaky gut, and to have a well-operating immune system. We have now learned that when you have a well-balanced microbiome, which is the collection of all living organisms in the animal, then there is a microbiome gut-brain axis. And not only are you improving the physical attributes of the animals in our care, but you're having a beneficial impact on their mental well-being. We see reduced tail biting in pigs. We see less skittishness and more comfort in poultry. We believe the same thing is happening in cattle. We have evidence in dogs about behavioral changes on probiotics. So you provide these living organisms because they pencil out for feed efficiency, so they make sense to give them an ROI. But then if you can improve the welfare of the animals in your care and have a positive impact on sustainability metrics, that's a win-win-win. That's what the consumer's looking for, that's what our protein packers are looking for, and what consumers should look for in their packaging.
So if we've got folks in the audience who maybe haven't experimented with the world of biologicals, they've not looked into enzymes or probiotics, right, where would you send them to get started, to get comfortable, to work these things into their livestock rations?
Well, certainly we would send them to novonesis.com. And in fact, you can search the literature. There's so much being done on human health and biology, on animal health and biology, that is now looking at the world of microbiology and all it can do. But the truth is, a clever nutritionist is up to speed on these things. They are always looking to improve the efficiency and the cost, the relative cost of their diets. And reach out to your nutritionist, make them aware that you're interested in these kind of things, and they should have the capacity to find that literature themselves or contact our tech service people and those from other reputable companies to enrich the likelihood of making a great decision.
It sounds like there's a lot more to come in the world of biologicals and enzymes. Thanks to Dr. Steve Lerner with Novonesis for filling us in.
Agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier returns now with his extended farm weather forecast for the country.
Greg, tell me, from a precipitation forecast, is there anything I need to tell the gang out here in California?
Mike, a pretty good spell of weather over the past week across Monterey and vicinity, but that'll be changing with another round of maybe some atmospheric river type weather systems to contend with as the week wears on in those central areas of California on northward in particular. Note how far south the rain snow line goes. With time, we may measure up downwind of the Great Lakes region, a water equivalent of maybe quarter to a half inch. These will be light snow systems moving on through. No major storms for now, and maybe changing later into the month. Some rain and some freezing rain, sleet potential across the areas along the Ohio and points on southward to the mid-south. Had that last week, and just a couple of spotty showers into parts of central and south Florida. Really a quieter weather picture with regard to moisture, but a frequency of weather systems on the move in the coming days and weeks. We'll welcome in wintertime on the 21st here, a little after 9 in the morning in the central time zone, and here is the mother lode of Arctic air here. Bits and pieces continue to drain on southward. Some semblance of warmth across the deep south, but again, this range of temperatures and a buckling jet stream pattern across the middle part of the country. No shortage of weather systems. They may not be big winder-uppers, but frequent snows, albeit light, out of the high plains into the Midwest across the northeast of New England. Welcome rain across the areas down in the southeastern part of the country and Delta, and some snow across the Cascades as well. Pretty quiet weather picture across the desert southwest. Some eastward and southeastward trek on some of this cold air as we move into Christmas time over the upper Midwest into the northeast of New England. Warmth will retrograde over the southwestern reaches of the country. No shortage of not only counting the snow now, but more to come. We are guaranteeing a pretty widespread white Christmas out of the Pacific Northwest, Big Sky Country, Canadian Prairie, much of the Corn Belt, and points east and southeast into the northeast and New England. As we get ready to ring in the new year, we ring in a new weather pattern. That cold air even more dominant and settling on southward with a jet stream pattern across areas down through Oklahoma, swinging up through the Ohio Valley into the northeast and New England. Some semblance of warmth right here, but this is a classic winter storm setup. In this particular configuration, we at times will tap into that main motherlode of Arctic air. Systems will continue to generate some drought relief in the form of snow for the Pacific Northwest. More snow, but building southward into the central and southern Rockies. When's the last winter season that we had that going on? No shortage of winter storms that rolling up out of Oklahoma into the Ohio Valley, into the northeast and New England. Otherwise, more severe weather potential, if anything, over the deep south and southeast with continued outbreaks of showers and thunderstorms. It will be a busy new year in the Weather Office.
Our Farm Progress Update is brought to you by Brandt Industries. Lead the field with Brandt's lineup of versatile high-speed discs and achieve better results with every pass. Visit brandt.ca for more. Matt Youngman, National Events Director with Farm Progress, joins us now. Matt, how does it feel to be putting this year's Organic Grower Summit to bed?
You know, it's a great event. This is the third time that we've had something to, had a part in it, and we've got great partners out here. It's really cool to kind of get to know a new industry. The whole organic industry is kind of like a family reunion when you're here. The producers really work well together. They look forward to seeing each other, and it's a really cool energy, cool vibe, and Monterey, California isn't a bad place to visit as well.
No, it's not too bad to see those sea lions out there on the coast. But of course, Matt, when we get back, you'll get back to snow, of course, on the home farm, and you'll start looking ahead to the Farm Progress Show. Do we have any insight as to what's to come of the 2026 show?
Well, so this is the time of year when we start sorting through all the good ideas and figure out what are the things that we can fold in. We're taking a really hard look at getting more companies involved in demonstrations. Obviously, we have combine demonstrations, tillage demonstrations, everything that you'd expect for the tillage, for the equipment companies. But can we do more for the companies that do seed and chemical, fertilizer, crop protection, all of those kind of things? And so we're taking a hard look at what can we do to get a lot of those companies that help agronomically, get them some kind of demonstration. So, folding that in, and then we'll, in the same area, we'll probably have the cover crop plot like we added in Decatur, Husker Harvest Days. We added that 2 years ago. That's been really popular. And so just kind of working on the plans and make sure, now that we're at permanent sites, we need to make sure that the show is new and fresh every time it comes around.
And it sounds like it certainly will be. So we might see some changes to this next one.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of work kind of going on behind the scenes to make sure that it will look a lot different. After 2 years goes by, there's always some shuffling in the show site, and I think as fast as agriculture is evolving, you can look forward to a kind of a whole new look to the show site.
And we'll be in Boone, Iowa this year. And Matt, do you have the dates on hand?
It is September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. The show schedule keys off of Labor Day, and so Labor Day moves to as late as it does in the calendar, which puts us on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of September.
Matt Youngman, thanks so much for your insight. Look forward to seeing you in Boone. And folks, leave it here. We'll have a conversation with this year's Grower of the Year from the Organic Grower Summit when we return.
Now on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, where we spotlight another great American farm tractor. If you have the paperwork, the documentation on when that old tractor was purchased all of those years ago, oh my goodness, it makes it even more special when you get it back after 45 years. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Lundell Plastics. Get ready for the season ahead, producers. Be ready with your planter for the 2026 season. You can upgrade it with the help of the folks at Lundell Plastics, LundellPlastics.com. Well, 53 years ago this month, December of 1972, on Vilwalk Farms in Indiana, they got brand new power. They traded in an International 706 for a 1066 and a plow. On that 1066, they had an engine heater, they had the weather breaker, canvas protection, they had a radio. Thank you, Vilwalk Farms. And Don Vilwalk knows all of this because he still has the paperwork for the tractor that has just now, after more than 4 decades, come back to Vilwalk Farms. Take a look at the tractor. They traded a 706 for it back in 1972. The 1066 did its duty on Vilwalk Farms for 8 years, the first new tractor that Don Vilwalk had in his farming career. Well, they traded it away, and it stayed away for 45 years until last week. It had been in that same county, Knox County, Indiana, over the years. Don had duals on it when he did tillage back in those days. We suspect he'll opt for just one new tire on each side in the restoration, and I am pretty sure that that tractor will be restored there in Knox County, Indiana, owned by longtime Indiana farm leader and longtime friend of ours, Don Vilwalk, Knox County, Edwardsport, Indiana. Mark Stock sells iron. You bet he does. He sells breeding stock. He sells land. Here's his report on what's selling in the week ahead at Big Iron Auctions.
Well, hello, Max. 57 retirement and estate auctions will take place this month. December the 8th, the Terrell Farms Inc. retirement sale in Dawson, Iowa. David and Steve Wentworth's retirement sale in Decatur, Illinois. On December 9th, John and Rita Schuster, Pilot Grove, Missouri. Tim Anderson Farms Inc. in Albin, Wyoming. On December the 10th, Dallas and Jackie Breitbarth, Bancroft, Nebraska. Dinchledge Farms Inc. by Elgin, Nebraska. Fred and Annette Greider retirement sale, Carlock, Illinois. Meisner & Sons Inc., their retirement sale, Gering, Nebraska. Patrick Ortmeyer retirement auction in Scribner, Nebraska. The Sherman Wilshusen estate sales in Polk, Nebraska. The Steve Moody retirement sale, Brock, Nebraska. Wayne and Kevin Shawn, Olney, Illinois. The Darwin Blank retirement sale, Madison, Nebraska. Plus Western Equipment LLC John Deere Machinery Auction on Thursday, December the 11th, H&H Grain and Livestock, Booneville, Indiana. The Par 3 Farms Retirement Auction, New Sharon, Iowa, December 12th. Mark Jorstad Estate Sale, Morris, Illinois. Dean Papke Retirement Sale in Miles, Iowa. Mike Peterson Retirement Sale, Wheatfield, Indiana. Max, this is late model, low-houred equipment. Let's thank and support these farmers and ranchers for their years feeding America.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Geringoff. Check out the new XFR 50 Draper with 3 times more flexibility than its closest competitor at Geringoff.com. Geringoff, proudly built in the American heartland. This week, we're talking with Megan Whittle. She's an FFA graduate who is still interested in agriculture. Megan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell me where you went to high school.
I went to high school at Ernest Righetti High School in Santa Maria, California.
And you had the chance to join the FFA chapter there?
I did. I was inspired by my mom. She was an FFA, and I did 4-H all through being young, and then once I got to high school, graduated to FFA.
And now, of course, you've graduated beyond FFA. As you stand here as an adult working on your master's at Cal Poly, do you see ways in which FFA has benefited you today?
Totally, yeah. So I raised pigs for FFA. I raised them from 9 to 18. I did as much as I could because I loved them. They're my favorite animal. And I just had so much fun in that program. And also, more importantly, and what's translated more into my work today is a connection with our food systems and knowing where our food comes from a very young age and having a respect for that. That's definitely impacted how I want to work moving forward. And also just like maybe less so. I grew up on a ranch down in Santa Maria, but being able to raise pigs outside on the ranch was just such a wonderful experience and kind of influenced me in the way that I want to pursue like outdoor stuff in my work moving forward, whether that be in a cropping system or conservation or.
And so now as you look forward, are you in a place that you will be able to work in agriculture?
I hope so, yeah. I'm just finishing up my master's degree. My research is in nitrogen leaching and organic vegetable cropping systems. So I would love to pursue a career that's associated with that.
Fantastic. That is the research we need this year. Megan Whittle, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lots of farms around the country have leaned on the genetic capabilities of Pioneer seed corn for some time. One of those farms is Hento Bros, an operation in South Dakota. I had the chance to talk with one of the co-founders, Tanner Hento, about his farm.
My brother and I started farming in 2013 after our dad passed away. It's been a process getting going ever since, but we've been planting Pioneer from day one. It's been a great experience. We raised corn, soybeans, and alfalfa, and we had arguably, objectively, all the above, our best year ever. So been no complaints and super happy to talk about the year.
Well, tell me, why do you plant Pioneer corn on your operation? Can you give us some examples of times that it's really shown for you?
Sure. The genetics are the obvious ones. You know, we believe really strongly in what Pioneer has invested. We've taken the tours of Johnston, saw everything that they've done. But honestly, aside from the genetics and just how well it yields, what gets us to come back time and time again to Pioneer is the support system. And that's really what's kept us around. When there's a problem, whether it's our local seed dealer, the agronomist, the regional manager, that's who makes the difference. It's the men and women that stand behind the seed is what makes us come back.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of the challenges those seeds faced this year. There were a lot of struggles through the growing season. How did your corn hold up?
Sure. We came out the gate pretty wet. We had a couple of 5-inch rains back to back, which is pretty problematic in the Midwest. We have a lot of drain tile and it still wasn't enough. So emergence wasn't phenomenal. But that was about the biggest challenge for the year. Once that was over, we had really timely rains. You know, if anything, you could say too timely, just because we started getting a little bit of disease pressure at the end, especially on the corn, which was kind of a new experience for us. So those were the challenges. You know, I always say farmers always find a way to complain about something. So as good as the year went, I gotta be thankful and grateful. So if I had to nitpick, those would be the few things.
All right. Well, it sounds like it has been a great brand to work with over the years. And of course, Pioneer is celebrating their 100th anniversary next year. Tanner, what does that mean to you to work with a company with that sort of history?
You know, aside from the number itself, which is always a feel-good, 100 years, that kind of thing, I do a lot of backtracking in my mind, and I think about everything they made through. They made it through multiple wars. They made it through economic depressions, recessions, crashes, all the above. I think any company that can make it through that shows resilience. I think that shows that they know how to grow in modern times, but they also know how to batten down the hatches and be resilient in the lean times. So what that means to me, aside from a really nice number, but it shows a company that's going to be around for another 100 years, which, you know, in this day and age is hard to find. So we really value resiliency and knowing they're going to be there in the coming years. That's a big difference.
Thank you, Tanner. And folks, don't go away. When This Week in Agribusiness returns, we'll have a conversation with this year's Organic Grower of the Year from the Organic Grower Summit. At the end of the Organic Grower Summit this year, they named Arnett Duncan of Arizona as this year's Organic Grower of the Year. We caught up with him after the award ceremony.
Oh, this is great. I get to go home and look at everybody and say, look what we won, and then share it with everybody because it's everybody's award.
When you say everybody, how many people does it take to make Duncan Family Farms run?
Well, we've got about 350 employees. The people that I work with directly as far as the agronomic teams are concerned, there's probably 20.
All right, so it does take a team to bring all this together. Arnett, what was it that got you into the world of organic production?
Wow, what a great question. I would say just the foundational knowledge of working with compost, and through that process learning what it means to really enjoy good, healthy soil.
Greg, John Deere was this year's presenting sponsor for the Grower of the Year Award at the Organic Grower Summit. Why is that important to John Deere?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just to show our appreciation for the farmers and the growers that provide us with some of the easiest access to fresh produce and fruit, and acknowledging the hard work that they do every day of the year to have year-round access to the food we eat.
So if you had one piece of advice for somebody curious about going organic or starting that process, what would it be?
Start a small compost pile. Learn how to do that, and I think you're going to be well on your way.
So now that you've got this award, you're going to go home, you're going to show it off, you're going to continue to enjoy the respect of your community. What's next for Duncan Family Farms? Where do you go from here?
Oh, enjoying doing new things. Looking at what are the latest and greatest ways to grow in each of our growing areas. What are the new things that we can do? What do our local buyers want? How can we meet their needs? There's so many challenges. It's just a matter of which one do you pick at any given time.
Has technology helped solve some of those challenges for you?
Yes, technology has been wonderful. Look forward to more innovations in the agricultural sector, and specifically ours.
And you see them coming into the world of organics, don't you?
It's been great. Yes, there's more and more coming into our sector, and it's been wonderful to enjoy.
Well, congratulations on the win this year, Arnett.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to Arnett Duncan for winning this year's Organic Grower of the Year ceremony, and a big thank you to everyone who made us feel welcome out in Monterey, California. Thank you for joining us here today. Be sure to catch us next time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness. This Week in Agribusiness is recorded in the Strauss Studio. Family owned since 1948 and trusted by pros worldwide, Strauss makes gear that works as hard as you do. Tough, functional, and resilient. This isn't just workwear, it's gear engineered to perform. Gear up now at Strauss.com.
This Week in Agribusiness is produced by 22 Creative Group and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.